So the reason we scaled this down is so that we can create that studio environment, right? And the question came up about why do you have it on this little platform? And the answer is I'm actually treating this thing like an object. So, and I probably should have pulled this image up first, but yeah, that'll work. So we're essentially doing this, but it's with an architectural model, right? If you look at it as an object in a place, you know, and you're trying to view it at eye height, but it's a small object, it gets placed on a pedestal and lit properly. So that's essentially the type of thing that we're trying to capture here. So right now mine's probably too big. It depends on how you want to light the scene. And, you know, designing the pedestal for your model is sort of it's still definitely an artistic discipline, but right now we're just keeping it super basic and putting it on a box. So what I would say is generally the extents of your box, you don't really want to bring out much farther than like half the width of the model itself. So, you know, it really should extend a lot less than this. So I'll get rid of this curve, and then I'll just start doing face moves. So I'll just pull this one in, probably about there is appropriate. Something like that. And then I will also extend this, kind of hyperextend it down below. Well, I'll pick my camera angle later to actually show it properly, but this is essentially just going to be the basics here. So, yeah. So real quickly, I'm going to pause for just a moment for you to do the same. But while you're doing that, I'm going to show you sort of the easier way of doing it for someone who doesn't have it at all. So here is my model. I've basically placed it in space somewhere, and all I have to do is just go into the top view with this, and if you can't find it in the top view, just select it in perspective and type ZS over here in top, and it'll bring you there. What I would suggest is just go in the top on whatever layer you're going to build it, and then you can just approximate and go from corner to corner. Whoops, sorry, box. Let's see, corner, corner, and then you just go up here in your side view or wherever it is. Then you just bring it up. Luckily for me, it doesn't matter that it's like a mile tall, because I'm just going to be showing it from the top anyway. If you care about how tall this thing actually is, then just grab that bottom edge and pull it up. Yep. Yeah. Oh, I'm okay with you guys kind of like changing the articulation of this. If you want to chamfer the corners, if you want to make it round instead of square, that's fine. It all depends on what you want to show your design on. So, you know, have at it. I'll give you a couple minutes, and then we'll move into the actual lighting setup. So continuing on, we are now going to set up the lighting. And the lighting, if you remember when we did it in the first assignment, assignment 1, we actually did it on, we did it with a series of planes that we just took and copied off of the geometry that existed, right? Because everything we did was some kind of like soffit light or panel light or something like that. Well, now our actual models our actual lights are going to simulate the images that you saw before. Basically, it's going to look exactly like this, where we just have a bunch of panels that are in space, located in a place where we're trying to accentuate the architecture. So, generally speaking, a good rule of thumb is to have 3 lights. One of them is going to be sort of your main ambient light, and 2 of them will be accent lights. And so what I'm going to do is my main ambient light, I'm going to go with sort of like a warmer, like a warmer incandescent kind of quality. And then my accent lights are generally going to be sort of the cooler fluorescence. You know, and I don't know. I don't yet know if that's going to be perfect, and I might switch things, but that's the idea. So anyway, my main light is going to be a bigger, wider panel, and then we're going to do smaller panels for those accent lights because it's going to be more specific to where we want the light to go. You know that I'm a bit of a fan of file management. So again, for every new type of geometry we create, we obviously want to make sure it has a new layer, specifically because we can just create materials in Maxwell and then assign it by layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call one incandescent 1. And then I'll create another layer and call it accent 1, and then another one accent 2. And actually, because I like to keep my my stuff ordered really nicely and kind of reading as a family, I'm going to put a prefix on those layers. So I'm going to change incandescent 1 to just be L incandescent 1, and the same for accent, L accent. L accent. That tells me that those layers are for lighting, and for lighting only. That's weird. Hyphen doesn't count as... Okay. Hyphen does not count as a character in this. That's really weird. So let me put a prefix on these other ones. 0 layers. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it because I'm organizing it alphabetically. Actually, it doesn't look like it's alphabetically at all, but it is. Oh, not that. Okay. There we go. Okay. So basically all we've got to do is just create panels, and there's really no magic to that either. I'm going to go in the top view, and I'm going to size it based off of what I see in my model. So my main environment light, the incandescent, I'm going to make it roughly 2 to 3 times bigger than the model itself. So let's do that with, where's that, L incandescent, and I'm going to make this one sort of like a gold or orangey color just to get started. So maybe something like that. Planar surface, yeah. Okay, and then my accents I'm going to make about the size of the model pedestal itself. So L accent 1, we'll make one like this, planar surface, and I'll make it an alternate of that down here, and then change that to L accent 2. And if you care enough, you can make 2 separate layers. I'm going to make one, I guess I'll make it like a lavender color and one a blue, but you can manage that however you want. Alright, so these are going to exist kind of far away from my model, so I'll get them relative to it. And then I'll just start setting it up. So this first one, I'm going to kind of rotate it so that it sort of faces the front of the building. And for me, the front of the building is going to be this corner. So I want that light to just shine down generally on that corner from a slight angle to the right. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second. So I'm going to tilt it, look at it in the side here, and I can just use my gumball to kind of tilt it this way. Then I can sort of pull it up, move it over. So here's an interesting thing here. If I keep using my gumball to rotate this, then it's going to wind up getting fully skewed. That may or may not be a good thing. Generally, I want to keep my lights perpendicular to the ground plane, or parallel to the ground plane. So I'm going to do my next rotate in the top view without an object snap, and I'm just going to go there and sort of face it at the model like that. So looking at it now, you know, you can kind of see that I have this giant light that's like right in front of my model there. Okay. So now with my accent lights, I'm going to place one to accent a particular architectural element, and I'm going to face it at this entry from sort of a backside so that I get a good shadow cast on this condition. The other one I'm going to place on the right-hand side to try and illuminate some of the underground area, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of that leak out here on the left-hand side. Okay, so when you're placing these lights, you should kind of get a sense of roughly, you know, the effect it's going to have on the space. There are certain things I'm trying to accent. I want to accent the depth of my glazing system, and I want to accent the fact that there is a pass-through opening underneath my building. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to move this one into plane. Let's see. I'll rotate it. This one's probably going to be a little more vertical. Actually more horizontal is what I want. And it's going to go sort of back here. And I'm going to rotate that around to face that. Actually, I'll rotate that more. Kind of like that. That has to come up. So the check here is generally going to be select your model, get into the view that you approximately want the light to shine down on, and that panel should largely be facing that view. So this one might be a little out. Probably want to rotate this one a little more that way. Well, that might be all right. Place it there. We'll see how it looks, and then I'll tweak it later. This one then, I'm going to do the same thing. Rotate it up. This one's definitely going to be a lot more vertical because I want it to flood more across underneath the building. And I will rotate it from here. Go. And it's going to try and go through that space, so it's at about that kind of angle. And I'll move that here. Where'd it go? There it is. All right. Whoops. Move it up. Okay. So after that, you just kind of have to be careful about where your camera is going to be relative to all those, and you just need to make sure that your lights are not in your view. And there are ways to turn these lights off, of which I'm not an expert yet, but we will explore that at some point. What questions do you have? I know most of that toward the end there you didn't have to actually be watching or following, but I did want to talk through the narrative of how I was thinking through the light placement. All right, so I'll give you guys a bit to get caught up, and then we'll move on.